Hey folks, welcome back to Guitar Wishlist. My name is 3-Chord Dave. Today we're talking about the Gretsch Super Axe. I'll give you some of the other names for it in a few moments as well. But before we get into it, don't forget every episode is inspired by this book right here, The 1001 Guitars That You Should Dream of Playing Before You Die. It's a very cool book. It goes all the way back to the 16th century. Yeah, they had guitars back then, did you know it? Anyway, some very cool stuff. Look at all the bookmarks I have. And that's just like in the last couple of weeks. Hours and hours have been wasted on this book since December when I picked it up for the first time. It's inspired this series. If you want to pick up your own copy, there will be links in the description below. You should definitely check it out for you or the guitar lover in your life. Now, let's talk about Gretsch in the 1970s. Actually, let's talk about guitars in the 1970s. Some of the biggest companies were owned by corporations who, let's just say it, their primary function was not to make guitars, but to make money. So cost cutting and so forth was brought into effect in the guitar world. Fender were owned by CBS, Gibson were owned by Norlin, and Gretsch, well, they were owned by Baldwin, as they had been in the 70s. Baldwin is now owned by Gibson, so you know, it all changes. Anyway, the late period of the 70s for Gretsch were the dark days. People do not look on that very fondly as a time. In fact, in many ways, people look back and say they were trying to Gibsonify their range, and people didn't really dig it. But the Super Axe, for me, is one of the shining stars that came out of it. It's a very cool guitar, I think. It's a large, solid maple body with a maple neck, an ebony fretboard. It's got those kind of square inlays. The 3rd and the 5th fret get 1. The 7th and the 9th got 2 inlays. And then everything from the 12th on gets 3. Some very cool feature there. You will obviously see there's like a big oval American football style thing there. We'll get into what that is in a minute. In the pickup positions, you had DiMarzio pickups, which were pretty hot pickups for Gretsch to be including in their guitar as well. It's a slim, big body, maple, solid body guitar. Very much a departure from what they would normally get up to. But there's no getting away from the fact that it looks a little bit like a misshaped Les Paul. So yeah, they were kind of trying to Gibsonify this design at least. Now, a couple of doozies came out of Gretsch's marketing department who said the following about the Super Axe. It produces the greatest sound variations you will ever hear. Full stop. But they didn't stop there. No, they had more to say. Also adding, it has a compressor that squeezes the tone and feeds it out for an infinite tonal response and sustain. So there you go. It's got infinite tonal response and it also has sustain. Maybe they meant infinite sustain? It doesn't read that way to me. But there you go. That's what the marketing department were excited about back in the day. And even like super endorsee of Gretsch, Chet Atkins, said that this was the ultimate guitar for any rock musician. However, most rock musicians did not agree. Probably the biggest name to ever hold one of these guitars in public, at least, is Rick Springfield, who held one on the cover of his 1980 album, We Are the 80s, and played one live and was seen in several photo shoots with his, but albeit a slightly modified version. Now, you might be looking at that football kind of oval thing and say, well, hey, what's that all about? So there are some different things in there. So as I said, this guitar does have a built-in phaser and a built-in compressor. So you obviously have to put a battery in this as well. So there's an on and off switch for those, toggle switch. Then you have a master tone and a volume. Then you have a sustain knob, and you also have for the phaser a blend and a rate knob. So that's what's housed there, and you also have your output jack there as well. Now these guitars are kind of rare because they weren't made in massive numbers, and in fact in 1980 Gretsch kind of dropped off the face of the earth for a little bit. So these came out in between 1977 1978, and they had a year or two, and then Gretsch was kind of disappeared. On Reverb, just before I recorded this video, the one version of this guitar that's available for sale is in California, and it's 2,432 euros if you wanted to pick it up. I'm not that enthusiastic about it, but maybe if the prices drop in a couple of years' time, I'll pick one up. Anyway, guys, that is the Gretsch Super Axe. It might not be the greatest guitar of all time, but it's on the list because, number one, it has probably the greatest name in the history of rock guitars. And it does actually sound pretty cool as well. So if you ever get your chance to pick one up, I suggest you do it. And it's officially on the Guitar Wishlist. We'll be back with another episode of Guitar Wishlist next Monday. Until then, make sure you let me know your thoughts and comments on the Gretsch Super Axe down below. And I'll be back again for another video on Thursday. And 3-Chord Dave Live will happen every Saturday. Don't miss it. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.